Good afternoon or evening. It's
Hello.
Evening. It's firmly evening where you are, Matt.
Massively
It's
so.
nearly tomorrow, I think.
It's only 9 o'clock. Although due to a complete mistiming of my dinner, I've had to abandon making it and gonna have to go for afterwards. So
Oh,
I'm gonna
no.
have to have a midnight snack. I'm
So we're
afraid.
going to have
Yeah.
grumpy Matt Russell on this show.
Big time.
Either grumpy or really drunk is what it's going to be.
Well, yeah.
This can
By the
go
time
two
this is
ways.
finished,
We just don't.
I've got like a whole bottle, so we're
Wow.
good to go.
Let's go right there, Matt, because we always forget to do that transition for too long in these shows. So
We
please
went
show
right
us
into it.
the entire drink that you've brought along here.
Okay, so I am currently drinking this. It's a pretty cheap gin, but it's it's actually quite nice. It seems to be there was a sort of trend for craft beers a couple of years ago, or over the last sort of 10 years. It's in this country. It seems to be going
heard of it,
craft
yeah.
gins. Craft gins is where it's going here. So it's like that's it, non-stop different gins. So I thought I'd try one.
Look at that.
Apparently, a local one went to space, but I couldn't find it. I think it's Silent Paul. They sent the recipe onto the ISS or something, and that's quite a local.
Wow.
one.
Did it come back yet? Can you drink it yet?
No, I don't think so. Well, no, you can.
I mean, you
think they
better
only-
be
it's
first in
something
line
like
when that happens. Like, that would be messed up
Yeah,
if you
it
weren't.
was just the
Wait.
recipe. It was just a piece of paper with the recipe.
Yeah, it was just
It's
a
an
piece of
off-site
paper.
backup.
So
It's like the Coke recipe in a vault.
I didn't really get it. It didn't seem like the greatest achievement.
Huh.
I mean,
We drank that beer the one time
I'm
that they
sure
shot the yeast on the suborbital rocket, right, Jake? We did
yeah,
that.
that's pretty good.
That was an early
that's like-
sponsorship, and that's dried up entirely. No one else has offered to sponsor a show like that ever again. So
No.
must have been bad ROI.
For the 2 beers they sent us, it was probably pretty good
Yeah.
ROI, to be honest. Although they were expensive beers, but
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, cool. Okay, hey, the place I lived in BC did a lot of craft distillery stuff. There was like a place nearby that did gin, vodka, and whiskey. I guess was the other one. So I think that's picking up in different places, and it was like a total ramshackle operation. Just some guys in the mountains, like with a nice steel building that they threw up in 10 minutes, and they were just making booze. So.
Well, I wonder if the Queen drank gin. I'm sure that there must have been a Queen. And, obviously, Jake, I'm feeling sorry for you because you've lost your Queen, as have I.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the secret reason we had you on here. We booked you in September because we're like, she can't go that long. So.
She's going to go soon. Let's get
We did
Lord.
pretty good. We got it within a week or two.
Yeah.
We really nailed
Yeah,
it.
not
So,
bad. Not bad at all.
I mean, I'm surprised you're not out in the queue there, Matt.
Yeah.
Well,
I
yeah.
should pull that up. Here, I got the tracker. Pull the tracker up over
The
here.
tracker.
Yeah.
Well, there's a
Have you seen this?
man.
This is
Oh my
5
God.
mile. I don't know how many kilometers it is. I do, but it's a joke. It's all the way
Well, it
out
almost-
there. Look at it.
But if it was going the other way, it would actually stretch down to my house. So it would be,
Don't be
too
creepy,
bad.
but
Yeah, I could look out the window and there they are. I could join the queue whenever I want.
Jeez.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
not-
wild. That's wild.
I won't
the
be doing
queue. Like, I don't know. I loved Queen Elizabeth, but like,
You
I'm not
wouldn't
gonna
go out
look
and
at
stand
the
out there.
closed casket after a 5 mile.
So if it was open viewing, would you?
Well,
no,
like Russian
I
style.
can't do open caskets, but
Russian style is to keep them there for millennia at that point.
Yeah. I've walked past
Sure.
Lenin. It's absolutely it's amazing. Have you done that?
I haven't done Lenin, but there's a pope in the Vatican from before it was reasonable that we should have been able to keep people around that long.
Yeah, there's the odd. You come across the odd church that keeps like the foot of a saint,
Yeah.
like a bit of bone, don't you? As
yeah,
well,
it's
those
just like
kind of
bones in a
things.
box.
I think there's St.
underneath the
Catherine's
altar,
head is in a
right?
church in Siena. I've seen that one. That's a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Galileo's
that's getting
finger is in a museum in Florence, and that is interesting.
Ooh, that's
Just
that's
one
got to be
little
worth
finger.
it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
probably have a picture. I
The
can pull it
fin-
up.
That's a
finger
wrong with
that
us. Do
touched-
we do this? Why do we do this?
But that's the only one that actually impresses me. Galileo's finger touched the telescope that saw the Jupiter's moons. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Well, I can see that Jake's very unimpressed.
Matt, do you remember how I said we usually forget to do the drink segment for a while in this show? We've only done a third of it so far.
Look, there's the actual drink itself.
Oh, look at that.
I've been making
Nice.
Look at that.
Yeah, with
That's how
lemons and
long
stuff like
this intro has been going, Jake. Is you've made a whole drink.
yeah.
What do you got? Jake's got a very novel thing over there.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done just straight wine before. So I have this from here. A friend brought this to me as like a party gift or whatever. So it's from Argentina. I'm not being a very good Mexican. I'm drinking Argentinian wine, and tomorrow is the Independence Day for Mexico. So I should be having like some tequila or something, or maybe at least a Mexican wine. But yeah, this is like a family wine. Los Haroldos. It's a Malbec from 2018. And I'm trying it out today, so I had that there. And we're going wine.
Real
today.
talk. I never knew you would even consider drinking wine. Like that's never been a thing that's come up in our relationship. So
one of my favorite wine plays is I convinced Amy that we should make risotto this week. She, oh yeah, I haven't risotto in a while. I'm like, great. So I buy a bottle of white wine, and I pour the top bit of it into the risotto, and then while I'm cooking the risotto, I drink the rest of the bottle.
amazing.
So, yeah, that's my wine play. What do you got?
I realized this morning, I went, oh shit, this is a pretty Commonwealth rendition of Off-Nominal. The Queen died. I should go to my nearest beer store and find whatever the hell they have that's from England. And what?
Oh, don't say if it's Newcastle Brown, I'll be very.
And it's not. But I feel like when I was buying this, I was like, this is the only option. And I'm pretty sure Matt's gonna be like, what the? Why am I even on this show? I've got a couple of London Prides here. So
well, to be honest, that brewery is very near where I am. I have to go,
and they own all like the pubs with the two names. It's all the pubs. They only have two nouns. It's like Poster and Shingles is like all the pub names in England. Yeah.
The Red Dragon. That's the one. That's the one.
No, it's always like. I think the one I'm thinking of is like the Lamb and Flag and stuff like that.
It's the leg of mutton and lamb and things like that.
It's like always something this and that. Yeah.
And some of them are those that Cockney slang where they swap out the words like it's like a code language, right?
Right. I have all the Americans saying it.
Instead of saying upstairs, you say it's apples and pears, like that one,
Yeah.
It's a rhyming slang. Apples and pears. That's the name of my next pub.
Yeah, I think you'd be booed out of the pub for the pub game for doing that. It's too cheesy. I think there's probably the odd American or Canadian that started a pub in England with a Cockney rhyming slang, thinking they're being clever, but it just won't wash.
And they're the only one that Fuller's hasn't bought yet.
But London Pride, to be fair, is a decent tipple if you buy it on draft around these parts.
It wasn't too bad. It was only like $4 in the craft beer store, so not bad.
Yeah. It will do. A bit of an old man's pint. Bit of an old man's pint. But you must be heading up to the old man category now.
Ouch.
Yeah,
I did have a grey hair and a beard the other day. So.
Only because I'm way past it.
But you still get really sweet gigs. I'll tell you that.
Big time. Yeah, absolutely.
You were... I got to pull up the whole launch feed here, Matt, because...
Oh, yes.
This is our boy shouting over the launch.
I was very pleased how it turned out. Yeah, I didn't do the countdown though.
No, you didn't do the countdown.
Now, if you like.
Yeah, you have in the past done it, but not when anyone was launching anything. So this is
Vega C.
There he is.
Her inaugural flight, clearing the mast, like you said, in a blink of an eye.
Nominal.
Just see it through the cloud. Oh, it's a technology high on the leading edge of life there.
I love it.
It was going to be quick, Dante, and you are not joking. It's like George Russell in a racing car.
It's the best. It's the best.
Now, you know the reason why I did that, don't you? There's a couple of...
Because George Russell is your dad?
No, George Russell is my son.
I know he is,
but he's also doing really well in the Formula One, which Dante, my Italian the guy doing the Italian feed, not Dante, sorry, Emilio, who was doing the Italian feed. He was a big Formula One fan, and we were chatting about George Russell, and I thought this is the only way I'm going to get my kid's name in.
And I think for a split second, Jake was like, "Your son is a Formula One driver." I think that was.
Yeah, I was trying to put the dots there. I'm like, is he in like a Formula One like pool? Like he's doing really good in fantasy Formula One? Is that what you mean by that?
No, he really is my son. No. They're two separate George Russells. He's also not the George Russell that invented jazz or the birth of cool.
Solid name though. Great pick. Tough for Google. Tough for Google cred for your son, but.
And I'll give you points if you can tell me what Canadian band I was quoting at the start of that little clip there.
I missed the clip. What was the
The
sound?
high on the leading edge of life? Is that the part?
Yeah, that is it. Technology high. You should know it because it's.
I'm being a bad Russian and a bad Canadian today.
Yeah, it's a Rush song called "Countdown" about the space shuttle. STS-1.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Right.
It was my little homage to Rush. I managed to get.
Wow, you really worked a lot in there.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I was sneaking things in left, right, and center.
Couple of seconds there. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
So did you rehearse that? Like, did you have those like written down? Like, this is exactly what I'm going to say when it shoots it.
When I say it was rehearsed, it was intense rehearsals. I'm not joking. This went on for like we'd rehearsed that 6 solid days, and I mean solid, like getting to the Jupiter control room at 8 o'clock in the morning and leaving at 8 o'clock at night, with like it being full on all day long, like rehearsing the launch. It was really intense. And when I first started, I was absolutely terrible. And I was thinking, oh my God, they're going to be panicking so hard down in the mixing room. Because Emilio was just absolutely brilliant, of course. And I could hear the Italian commentary in the other booth going, oh no, it's so good. But Dante Gali, who was my sort of Italian expert who was next to me, he had COVID. So he couldn't fly to do the rehearsal. So I was doing it without him, and so there's loads. I've got a recording of me pretending to be Italian, talking to myself. It's quite good. So it was really stressful, and I actually, I was so much better on the real thing than any of the rehearsals.
You were high on the leading edge of life. Is the only. And I have to say, I was absolutely buzzing. It was so exciting, particularly considering it had scrubbed 2 times. Yeah. Which is, by the way, the first time that's ever happened to Vega as well. They've never had a scrub of any description. Wow. It always goes when it goes. So everyone was a little bit surprised by it. So yeah, it was. Well, new rockets, they don't always take off on time.
There was so much stress in that for me, because if it had scrubbed, we'd have had to have done it the next day, and if we did it the next day, because of some kind of French bank holiday or some holiday that they were having, I wouldn't have been able to get back to England until Tuesday, which meant I was going to get the sack because there's no way I could get that time off work. I'd already been cheeky as it was, so it was really stressful, and so it had to go at that time. So yeah, it was. Wow. But there was something extraordinary about it. It was like 13, 13, 13. So it was on the 13th hour, and on the 3rd. So it was like
the 13th month. All, yeah.
13th month of some year.
Well, what was it? It's the 13th day.
Yeah, July 13th. You had 13:07 UK time.
Yeah. And so it was.
So was that the Italian day that was gonna?
No, that's the 14th.
So it was. It was the Italians.
Yes,
love 13.
That would have gotten Matt fired. Yes.
Yeah. 14 would have got me fired. 13 was lucky for everyone, and yeah, it's Italian. It's the Italians' lucky number. So it almost like they'd done it on purpose. But it was epically exciting. I cannot tell you how much I was buzzing immediately after launch. It was incredible.
Can you give us some background in like how this came about? Because you went down for when did you go to French Guiana the first time? You had that trip down.
So the first time was to see the P120 be fired up. So it was almost exactly, I mean, to the week almost, 4 years before. And Eric was there, and Eric Berger was there, and a few others, like a lot of Italian press, because it was a big. I mean, obviously for the Italians, this is a much bigger deal than it is for everyone else. But the French and the French, of course, as well. But it's mainly in a kind of Italian endeavour. But the P120, that I went down for the firing of that, but it never fired. It fired a week later, so that even like the firing of a booster gets delayed. There's no launch windows to worry about, but even that got delayed. So I didn't actually get to see that. But of course, Julio, who is often a co-host, is also works for ESA in their space transportation.
Also on Anomaly.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's always buzzing
absolutely
around the Discord. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and he's a really useful person to know. Very, very kind of up on stuff. He loves it when I tell him rocketry stuff. When I school him, that's his I think that's his favorite thing. And
any fun trivia? Any of your favorite trivia that he's just been blown away by?
Oh yeah, he loves it when the one thing. It's quite good to see Julio in his natural environment. Bear in mind that it was a big deal for Julio this launch, because one of the things that made it different, because it's an inaugural launch, of course, instead of being looked after by Ariane Space, it's looked after by ESA. So he was actually suddenly the person. He's not normally the person that's in charge of, like, the way that the press see those launches, but for this one he was. So which is he goes, we need more exciting hosts that are at least interested in rocketry. And so he invited me and Emilio I think it worked. I think I really enjoyed it, but God, they took a gamble, and it was definitely good that they did all the rehearsals as well, because we really needed it, because there was so much going on and so many things where you could easily trip up. You could do that thing where you just try and speculate on something. And I would joke about it, and I could see their faces go white every time I'd say it. I'm just going to. It was very funny, but
just going to vamp on this a little bit.
It's like, no, you're not allowed to do. You're not like no
vamping.
Yeah, in a super low stress environment. New launch vehicle, launch market that got totally upended by the war in Ukraine. Vega has had a failure in the past, and this is a new one. It's also the side booster for the Ariane 6. It's just low stress all around. Very low stress.
I tried to start some conspiracy theory around the AVM and things like that, and it was one of those jokes that didn't seem to be going down well, so I kind of stopped it. But yeah. There was a
the joke that's funnier the less you know about what's going on behind the scenes. It gets funnier.
Yeah. That absolutely. So it was good, but yeah, there were some really amazing moments. Like we would sit round together and script it. So there were certain things where we would agree on how we were going to express the important bits that ESA wanted to get across. Like this whole idea of independent access to space, but without sounding too militaristic or money grabbing or any of those things. It had to be sort of more about Europe's scientific endeavors and things like that. So we kind of sat around and did all that kind of getting that stuff right. And we also sat around with people like the flight director, the DDO. We had to sit around with him and discuss what would happen in the DDO. And we had to sit around with him and sort of ask questions about what would happen in all the different scenarios. Because remember, there's like about 1,000 different ways it could have panned out. So we had to rehearse all of those as well. So it was
did you have a on the launch day itself, did you have a person that you could talk to that was in the mission control room, or did you just have to listen in the loop and hope you could grab whatever info was worth putting along?
No, absolutely. Thank God there was Kelsey, who's. I mean, one thing I will say that the team of Julio, Kelsey, and Elodie, who were there, were just the most professional team of people I've ever worked with. They were fun, super fun. We had an absolute ace laugh. We worked really hard, but they really knew what they were doing. And Kelsey would be not shouting, but sort of guiding in the loop. Dante was listening to the engineering loop, which obviously is very impressive. He's commentating with me. He's got English person in one ear. He's got a French person in another ear. He's Italian, and he's doing it all at the same time.
Operating on another level. Yeah, it's amazing.
He is operating on another level, that guy, and he was just so impressive. And he didn't get all the rehearsals either. So it was just brilliant working with people like that. They were just like insanely epic. And of course, how emotional anyone who works on Vega or anything related to Vega was about the project. It was, you could see that they were almost all in tears when it was flying. So, it was amazing.
We could tell you had a good time based on these picks as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good. There was Miss France there as well. If you might not see her in the picture there, but yeah, there was Miss France and Miss French Guiana. So there was quite a few celebrities there. Lots of military people as well. It was interesting.
It's a really interesting moment too, right? Like, it's funny that you said that they had to couch like the independent access thing, because if there's ever a time to be like, nah, man, like we can talk about how important this is as a geopolitical situation, like now is the moment to do that.
Yeah, but we kind of, that was the thing. I was sitting there going, yeah, and we can of course saying, oh, isn't it lucky that Avon switched its, because they had fuel tanks that were made in Russia, and then they switched them to Germany on the Avon Plus. And it's like, oh, why don't we talk about how lucky that was? And it's like, no, we just cannot. We cannot touch that subject at all, because of course there's still the Ukrainian engine.
The engines, right?
Yeah. And it's also still all up in the air, right? Like even at a high level, even though everyone's pissed at Russia, you still want to hold on to a small shred of hope that you can like make things better than they are now, and you do not get there by just throwing the entire thing under the bus, right? So
unless you're the head of ESA and you're just Josef Aschbacher, who's going out and talking some hot shit lately. So
yeah. Well, yeah, but they have to follow orders though, right? Like Josef Aschbacher is not going to do like I guess ESA is kind of independent, but the where the money comes from, you have to follow the lead with with the European Union and the Council and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Europe's been talking hot shit too, right? So
yeah, remember, it's not just the European Union, is it? It's literally outside of the European Union. That's the kind of that's the hard thing, I think, to get your head round, is that ESA's got nothing, hasn't really got anything to do with the European Union, because they we've got loads of people who aren't in the European Union, including now Britain, of course, which is a bit irritating. But there we go.
And Canada.
and Canada and Switzerland. Switzerland had a big part in this, and they're outside.
The Venn diagram of ESA and the EU is like almost a circle, but not. Yeah, there's still parts of the edges there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In terms of like, not so much rocketry, because Britain is kind of completely out of that loop completely. There's
you're good at satellites.
But we're very good at satellites, particularly in this town. The town that I'm in Guildford, which is pretty hot on satellites. Yeah,
you could use some work on who you choose to launch them, but yes, you're good at satellites. So
yeah, I know. That was some of the things, like hearing some of the rumors about what happened with the OneWeb satellites and stuff like that. It was like, it's wild.
Can we talk about some rumors? Yet? They're never getting them back.
Well, no, but yeah, I don't think they are. No, I was just like, literally, we're having these, and then you think, presumably it's to nick intellectual property off them as well. It's just like, well, we'll just dismantle them.
I'm thinking that the new cosmonaut routine, instead of getting out of the bus and peeing on the wheel, they're going to pull a OneWeb satellite out there and pee on the OneWeb satellite.
Smash it up with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, scene from Office Space, but it's, instead of the printer, it's the OneWeb satellites.
Yeah, it's like, it's. Well, and then the annoying thing, of course, you're talking to a shareholder of OneWeb, an accidental share. I own
accidental shareholder. Yeah,
as a British citizen,
we should figure out if you own. Do you own more of OneWeb than I own of SOS? Like, we need to figure out how the math shakes out on this. See who's a bigger shareholder and what.
Well, I bet.
Jake's the biggest shareholder in the Canadarm, like, because how division works, like.
And is your share, is Anthony's share of SLS more than Matt's share of OneWeb and Matt's share of SLS?
Yeah, that's
true.
Yeah. Who knows?
Down the rabbit hole.
Oh my.
Ooh.
Accidental
It's all
shareholder is
connected,
really funny.
everybody. Accidental shareholder.
How's that? Yeah, I don't know. I've got so many ways to take this. I'm just curious how that's feeling these days. Like, you know.
Well, I mean, it just like OneWeb just seems to be catastrophe after catastrophe, doesn't it? It's like it's you kind of.
Do you feel better about OneWeb or the monarchy? Which one right now?
Whoa.
OneWeb. Yeah, do you know what? In all seriousness, it's like I can't believe about the Queen is that obviously I'm a Republican, but the Queen's just was so good. She was really good at her job. She's just a really great head of state, and I can't see the next one repeating the trick. So it's kind of doom, isn't it? Really.
Hasn't he already?
There we go.
I'm like,
that's my prediction.
Following it, but like, isn't he already? Like, hasn't Chuck already been caught on camera? Like,
I mean,
berating the servants and
oh, really?
Like
it's one of those
weird
situations.
Oh,
yeah.
I know almost nothing about this. I none of my life is spent tracking any of this, so anything is news to me. But maybe I should pay more attention. This sounds fun.
Well, it's definitely fun, and I've been rewatching The Crown because it definitely does. It's quite nice to stick it all into some kind of perspective.
It's a good show. Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, like the Queen was there. I saw Scott Manley's thing, and it was like, yeah, the Queen. Bear in mind, the Queen has seen the entire space race while sat, on the throne. It's like it's just incredible.
I tweeted that the other day. Is that the last time we changed heads of state, NASA didn't exist. So, that's how long ago it was. So
it's insane, isn't it?
NASA by like many years. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Does the king know he's now also one of the largest satellite constellation operators ever in existence, in addition to the head of the church and all that? Has anyone told him? Like,
they have a bunch of secret money, so he probably already owned it, and then he's
in
probably
the control room.
On purpose shareholder.
Yeah. Well, he's a bit of an environmentalist, so I don't know how that goes down either, because he's an environmentalist in a weird environmentalist way, if you know what I mean.
I have no idea what you mean. No.
I won't unpack that. It's just too complicated.
It's a lot of nature reserves we don't have to dig up cables for anymore. That's what I'm just saying here.
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's a solid point. I got a lot of homework to do after this.
Yeah.
What is a weird environmentalist?
Environmental.
I'm so confused.
Does the king have shares in OneWeb? Okay, put that one down.
Yeah, what's the king's take on how the collision avoidance system should get integrated into the OneWeb satellites?
Well, if I bump into him, maybe that can be my next interview on the Interplanetary Podcast. Is to get the king on.
The direction OneWeb's going under new ownership. Yeah, how do we feel now that the throne's been passed down?
Absolutely.
Did you know I'm getting one last point on the monarchy, and then we can go on. I'm getting news, like, algorithmic news feed stuff handed to me, but I'm in Mexico, so it's giving me Spanish news. And fun fact, in Spanish it's Carlos. So I'm really torn now if I want to call him Chuck or Carlos as like a pet name. I'm really going back and forth on it, and I don't know how to make a decision. So anyway,
King Carlos. Yeah, I like it.
Carlos.
King.
I feel like there probably has been a King Carlos at some point in history, and I don't know that there's been a King Chuck. So
that's what I'm saying.
King Chuck the First.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in some ways, Chuck Norris is king, and you wouldn't argue with him about it.
This segment is over.
Amazing. Let's talk about Matt. You went to Kourou separated by however many years. Were there notable differences?
Exactly
4 years exactly, and a whole pandemic. Were there notable differences when you got there this time that you were like, oh wow, like this whole thing's turning around? Or is the existence now of new launchers, Ariane 6 and all, kind of just looks the same?
Annoyingly, because of the delays, I didn't get to go down to see the Ariane 6 launch pad, and they had a dummy Ariane 6 in the building. But in the mobile gantry, and so I didn't get to see it, which was a bit annoying because obviously I went when it was a building site. They'd got the metal framework of the Ariane 6 building, but not You saw all the outside cladding, and they'd built the frame trench, hadn't quite finished it. So apparently, obviously, all that looks amazing. But you get to see quite a lot of aerial footage of that, don't you? But everything else looked exactly the same. I think the cafe had moved. I think they got a new cafe called Gaia.
Was the jungle encroaching on the launch site more or less?
No jungling. But I tell you, it was very, very funny because when we arrived, as we were driving down, this is a sad story actually, and we almost, if we'd had time, we would have put in memory of the iguana that Emilio ran over on the. No, we were literally driving towards the space station and the space station. What is
not
it?
wrong.
Space center.
Port.
And spaceport, yeah. And we were sort of driving along, and this massive iguana started running across the road, and there was like no way of avoiding it, and you could hear it bumping up against the bottom of the car.
Yeah, should have put a little decal on the rocket for him.
Yeah, wildlife was wild.
This story would be a lot more shocking to me a year ago, but now there's like
how many iguanas there are.
I'm crushing lizards and iguanas in every random.
Yeah.
I open a door and a lizard dies sometimes here, so it's
I made the mistake of putting my shoes on without looking in there first, and I had a massive long gecko in my shoe, and it was just like, oh, what is that? What is my lace? And then I took it off, and it was like, the length of my foot. But somehow it wasn't hurt. but it was like I had it in my shoe for quite some time, going, that's really uncomfortable. Yeah,
could have been some crazy scorpion or something.
Yeah, we do the shoe check for scorpions, not geckos.
Yeah. Well, that's what everyone said. They said you should have been checking for scorpions and spiders.
Great.
I mean, you walk out in the jungle, and it's it's pretty dangerous. There's jaguars, caiman, there's spiders. It's not a great place to hang out, I don't think.
That is pretty wild to think about. Like the most advanced tech ever, and then a jaguar like looking at you, waiting to find you in a weak moment.
The roads around, there's quite a few sort of dead bodies of poor sloths that have kind of accidentally not made it across the road. So, it really is just right on the edge of the jungle there. It's the something shield, isn't it? I can't remember what the full title of that area is. But it's proper.
My South American geography is rubbish, so...
Yeah. We went into the jungle, and there's still the massive. There's a hide that looks over the spaceport, and it's a brilliant view of the spaceport. You can see all the various launch pads. The Ariane 6 one, the Ariane 5, the Vega one, and the Soyuz one is sort of nipped in the corner. But the whole hide is just covered in ginormous spiders. They are absolutely enormous. And it's like, it's covered. I mean, it's absolutely covered in it. So you're sitting there and you're going, surely this isn't safe, but it's like a horror film.
Any three of these could kill me. Yeah.
Yeah, any three of them could kill me, but there's at least 1,000. And they're all bigger than my hand, bigger than my face.
The nice thing is that the bigger the spider is, the less likelihood it's gonna be dangerous. So those big, we have the.
I'm sitting that out. I'm sitting that one out.
We have tarantulas here,
I'm not gonna find out.
Tarantulas are like the most benign ones. They're like, I just want to sit in a hole and wait for bugs to fall in so I can eat them. That's like all they do, And it's like they're lovely. So
that you can cuddle them, you can stroke them.
Yeah. You can. Some people do. People do. So
if they've gone insane. Well, I mean, the one thing that the jungle does do to all those buildings is that they do look a bit crap from the outside, like as in the humid hellhole that is the weather that keeps coming through all the time, just obliterates the buildings. So they all do look a little bit kind of knackered. But then as soon as you go inside, they're obviously amazing, like pristine white, shiny buildings. But yeah,
you gotta get down there sometime. It seems like such a cool place.
You have to get down there. I think you have to go via France, though.
I do. I have to fly to Paris and then there.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Unreal.
Even I would have to do that. Like from Mexico, I would have
Everyone
to go
does.
to the United States and then to France and then back. It's like wild.
Is this like some weird protectionist stuff that France has going on? Like we can only fly from France to France.
I did when I flew back. I flew via Fort France, which is in not the Caribbean, the other one. What is it? What's
the other one.
But it's,
I can't wait to find out what this is.
But so presumably as an American, you could fly there, sort of like down to the. Oh, what are they called? That group at the archipelago that's not the Caribbean.
I'm pretty sure it is. Like you're talking the island chain down there, like.
Yeah.
The Caribbean islands. You're thinking of the Bahamas, but that's not the Bahamas anymore.
No, maybe it is the Caribbean then.
Yeah,
but yeah. It's so.
Yeah, there's like a French West Indies, right? Like if you go through.
You can get there from there. That's convenient.
Yeah, so you can. You could.
No, I'm serious. There. Like that's way more convenient.
Yeah.
At least I'm heading the right direction most of the time. Like that's really great.
Yeah. But you got to remember, French Guiana is France. It's.
I know.
So
Yeah.
So it is. You haven't flown out of France and landed somewhere else. You're still in. It's an internal flight.
No passport control. Nothing.
No passport. No. The only thing they check Schengen. is your yellow fever document. That's it.
That's wild. A domestic flight that crosses the Atlantic.
Yeah. Well, it's wild, isn't it? That there's those countries in South America that have a French border. But it's Europe by far and away Europe's most westerly border.
They also
now that England has left Europe, yes.
Actually, it might not be. It might not be the most westerly border of France because they also have Saint Pierre and Miquelon, which is in the east coast of Canada. They have a couple islands over there, like off of Prince Edward. No, it's off of Newfoundland, just south of.
Yeah, but are they still actual French territory though?
Yeah,
As
they
in,
are.
When you get there, they use
you catch
euros.
You catch a ferry from Newfoundland. You have to do passport control, I think. So.
No way.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now. It's the weird part of Canada. It's like this little thing off of, country France.
Well, I'll tell you what annoyed me the most was that obviously my mobile phone was fine. So I get to French Guiana, my mobile phone works fine on my same tariff. I don't have to pay anything. But when I fly to Guernsey, which is part of the UK, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's a different thing. I have to have roaming charges. It's like, are you absolutely kidding me?
That is incredible.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was such a juxtaposition because I did it a week later going to Guernsey, and it seemed harder. Everything was harder.
Like I just traveled a quarter of the way around the planet, and everything was totally fine.
Yeah. And no, sorry, you're going to have to. I couldn't even get data. It was like one of those things. Yeah, there is no way that the.
If only one web, if you had one web, you would have been fine everywhere. So.
Exactly. That's why I'm rooting for them.
It's funny because like there must be some sort of lesson we can draw from like orbital mechanics on that like France thinks it is worth it to build their spaceport across an ocean on a way different continent in the jungle. Like it's like the worst, like besides from the latitude, it is the worst place they could possibly pick to put a spaceport. And so the fact that
that's how good geography is that
it's at like whatever is it 2 degrees or something like it's almost like
5, right?
There's got to be 10 different reasons though, because the other one is that the weather's actually fairly clement out there, so it's like as in it doesn't change. Plus, you're going over the ocean. You can do a dogleg north. You can go straight out.
Yeah, you got you got everything you need.
You've got the whole. Yeah, you got
probably
the whole
100 degrees of azimuth. Yeah, you could even if you wanted. If you want to be sporty, you could fly right over the beach in Kourou and no one gives you trouble.
Well, do you know what? That was the most interesting fact that I learned about the whole weather balloon thing. Was what I thought about the weather was that it affects the rocket's flight path, but it's not about that at all. So high winds, they send up weather balloons and then they measure the high winds, and it's because if they blow the rocket up, if it obviously if there's it starts to go out of its flight corridor, they have to be sure that the wind won't blow all the broken bits of rocket down onto the beach of Kourou and around.
And if it's flying over the beach but going all right, then just keep your hands off.
That's okay.
Let it keep going.
The other really ace part about that whole part of the world is do you know the book Papillon or the film Papillon, which is about it's a great film. I can't remember it's a really good film. but it's about Devil's Island, and the French used to have a horrible prison there. And it's a really good book, really good film, and that's like part of the flight path. So they have to clear Devil's Island off, but it's like a really cool part of the history. So like there's the spaceport and Devil's Island right in the same place. So it's a really cool place to go. You know, other than the fact that, you're in the jungle and it's still France, so you still can get some good food and wine, but you cannot get a good cup of tea. It really pisses me off. In France or anywhere, you cannot get a good cup of tea. In fact, I should have had a cup of tea here because I'm so annoyed by it. Yeah, it's very hard being English and traveling around the world.
Yeah. That's why you guys tried to own it all at one point, right? Because
exactly.
It'd be a lot easier if our cell coverage just worked everywhere.
It is. It's a bit like internet access is now. Like the Romans had wine and olives. The British had tea. You've got to be able to have tea. It's like,
but it's like the only thing y'all put on the boats. Like you didn't take any of the good spices or the good food or just nothing. Nothing but the tea leaves. That's it.
All we give a shit about is tea.
Yeah,
which is what
because you take a short cruise over. That's why it was such an offense to you.
It was so offensive. I'm still offended now.
I'm now imagining like these like British sailors like arriving in Sri Lanka.
What the hell?
And like, give us all the Ceylon tea, and they're like, we also have like garam masala, and all that. And they're like, no, we don't want any of that.
It's like, okay, whatever.
We got potatoes, we got sausage, we got tea. That's all we want. That's the only.
But that's what's confusing me. You go just a little bit of a short cruise over to Ireland, and the food is delicious. Like everywhere you go, the food's delicious there, and it's like. You're the same thing up here. Why are you guys doing the not good version of what Ireland's doing over there? I don't understand how. And it's like we didn't have any room but for tea. That's all you had. That's all you had.
Anthony's just throwing down no good food in the UK.
Except for the shoom. Yeah, the shoom is like the greatest culinary experience of all time.
Well, this was an interesting point that Elodie, who of course is French, and of course I was with French and Italians all the time, and of course they think that they're the greatest.
Yeah, no opinions flying around that trip at all.
No, so they're and obviously I'm not going to pretend that English cuisine is as good as French and Italian cuisine, right? But Elodie did make a really good point. She sort of said that when you're in Britain, because we're not obsessed with our own cuisine, you can get everyone else's cuisine and it's really good. Yep. So like in London, obviously, you've got access to every kind of cuisine that you want and every type of wine. You can get French wines, Italian wines, South American wines, Australian wines. We're just not snobby about it because we don't really have our own. Even fish and chips is Jewish.
Yeah. No, it's very true. And like, Canada, United States, probably very, very similar, right? Like, there are very few like things that are Canadian food. Like, you can say some of the stereotypes. You can say poutine or beaver tails or whatever you want to say. But the big thing is that we can get all sorts of crap. Like I get the best Indian food I've ever had in Surrey and things like that. Right? Yeah, it's the same.
Well, what restaurant would we need to open if we moved to French Guiana is all I'm wondering now. Because now I feel like we've got a market here, Jake. I think
a tea shop to start apparently is.
What are tea shop? Tea shop is probably an offensive term too. What would you call that?
A tea shop's fine. Okay, actually,
I figured there was some crazy word for it.
It's not like a tea distillery or something.
A tea distillery.
A tea distillery.
Craft tea.
No, in fact, if anything, you want to be as unpretentious as possible when it comes to tea. Like there's a brand Yorkshire tea, which
have orange pekoe and London fog and nothing else. Like that's it. Just
no, just Yorkshire tea, and then that's it. And then maybe PG Tips is a sort of acceptable alternative to you, but not Lipton's Yellow. Don't ever give me Lipton's Yellow.
Big sign on the wall just says tea and big tea, and it's like that's the two products that we sell, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's so much so that's what Tim Peake took to the International Space Station was Yorkshire tea.
That's the real sign right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So that's how important tea is to the British. That literally he's the only person that's took proper tea up there. Honestly, you cannot survive without it if you're British. It's horrible.
Is that why
It's
there's
like an
been
addiction.
so few British astronauts? Is that what the?
It is. It's just was there no tea bags on the International Space Station.
That's the trick. So the next round, ESA's supposed to announce another round, right? Like in a couple of weeks or something. So we'll know like how T futures are looking based on whether there's a couple of Brits in there or not.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think that's going to be
Tim,
like? How because like there's not that many European astronauts active right now, right? There's like 7?
No,
It's not many.
Yeah, no.
Are you excited? You're going to have some
No.
new astronauts.
Yeah,
Although
I guess-
I've heard that like you don't care about. I mean, you personally probably do, but like your country folk don't care about Samantha Cristoforetti or the real crime to humanity. Don't care about Thomas Pesquet, who is the greatest astronaut of all time.
Well, he certainly thinks he is, but
But he hasn't met Victor Glover, is what you're saying?
No, yeah. Well, he's certainly the sort of It's quite funny because there's video screens when you arrive at French Guiana and lots of adverts going, and lots of them are Thomas Pesquet, and he's looking very kind of like cool at the camera, and it's like, man. I think he does have a bit of a. It's hard, I suppose, if you're Thomas Pesquet, not to have a bit of a raging ego.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. If I walked around the streets of England, no one would have heard of Sam or any of them. No,
It's kind of weird.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's because they don't. I guess they don't fly out of Europe. There's no European sort of human space program. Tim Peake was a big deal. There was a big deal, but no one's heard of Michael Foale either. Michael Foale went to the 5 times into space, and he's British. Went to school with Stephen Fry, but no one's really heard of him. If Michael Foale gives a talk in London, there's about 20 people there.
And his spacecraft's not sitting in the Science Museum, right?
No, exactly.
His Peaks is still there, I think. So you're Peak fanatics out there.
Yeah. I don't know where the Peak one is now at the moment.
I thought it was still in that
wasn't
museum.
Science Museum. No. It went to the Science Museum. Then it went up to Scotland, and then now I don't know where it is. It might have just been on because it was on loan from Russia, so it may have gone back.
You should keep it and try to trade it for the OneWeb satellites.
Yeah, there we go.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that is the way to go. I suspect
A
one's
prisoner swap of
it is.
spacecraft.
I mean,
for
British
them,
museums
it's
have
just a bit of metal.
a ton of stuff they've stolen from places. There must be something Russian in there that you could trade back, right?
Oh my god!
Would you like the Rosetta Stone? I don't know, the spires of Alexandria. Would you like the
Half of Babylon is at the museum here. Like
the statues from the Parthenon or whatever, right? Aren't they all the statues in there as well?
Yeah, the Elgin marbles. Yep, we've got them all.
Yeah. I'm surprised
no one
Catherine the
gave
Great's
the monkeys
bones
about
aren't in the museum there somewhere.
It's just her one finger. It's just they only have the one finger left.
Yeah,
Is that a good trade? Kind of Catherine the Great's finger for OneWeb satellites.
I mean, it's just about what the other person values.
This is what I'm asking. How much is a finger worth?
Yeah, these this show and the last show has to be the least space-related shows we've ever done in our life.
We've really gone off the rails.
We must be burnt out on all the space news and
I've tried to bring it. I've tried to bring it back to space as well.
Try as you might, we are not there right now, Matt.
We're not. SLS took part of us. It took a part
totally
of us.
Did.
And it's never coming back.
Let's get Matt's opinion on SLS because I think we are maybe too close to it.
We're too close.
By nature.
We're too close.
What do you make of this situation, Matt?
It's bizarre, isn't it? I mean, what's really weird is considering how ridiculous a rocket is, how massive it is. There just isn't that much excitement about it anyway in the first place. And then I to the point where I kind of knew that it wasn't gonna. I just, it's one of those things. You kind of didn't you feel like it was going to get scrubbed anyway, or did you actually think it was going to fly?
I was hopeful that the first day was going to work, and then once they scrubbed that day, I'm like, this isn't flying until 2023. Like there was an instant switch.
So yeah, where are we at the moment? Does it have to roll back, or are they actually going to keep it on the launch pad?
They're keeping it out there.
Really tricky.
It's all up to the Space Force now.
Yeah. Well, they have to do this testing. They're doing all this. They're doing these fixes. They scrubbed it again. They were going to tank it this weekend. Now they're not going to tank it till next week, and then try to launch it on the 27th. They're keeping it out.
I'll tell you what. It's all about batteries as well, isn't it? It's like that was the same with Vega as well. If a scrub was all about having to get it back into the mobile gantry to change the batteries again. It's like just seems really weird that these batteries are the things that's the most kind of problematic, and they're only there to blow it up as well.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they're not the most problematic. If they were the most problematic, the launch would have worked.
True. Yeah, but yeah, that is true. Yeah. That is true. But yeah, I mean,
in terms of a planning perspective, they are the most problematic. But yeah.
Yeah, considering the delay between that scrub of Starliner and when it actually went up again, it doesn't bode well, does it? It's got that written all over it.
Yeah, because all of this depends. Like, there's two huge things hanging over that September 27th launch date, right? One, they swap the seals and it works.
Yeah, right.
Not a guarantee. Two, they somehow get a extension from 25 to like 50 days of FTS, which like they got an extension from 20 to 25. So they got a 5-day extension. Now they're asking for a 25-day additional. I don't know. I have big questions. If they get this waiver, and I don't know, they're asking for it, they must think they have a chance. If they get it, I got big questions about what the heck any of this means. I don't know. It seems like all made up to me at this point. So,
and the question would be like, why did they have such a small? Why were they cleared for such a small timeline in the first place? If they,
this is what I'm saying. If
could
50
run the
was
numbers
possible,
on that,
why did you ask for 20 to start with?
Right.
Yeah,
I don't
it's weird about things like that because when you ask someone sort of down the line, and they'll say, I can tell you, but please don't tell anyone else. There's always like a sort of really rational explanation for it. But then it's like, oh, I see, I get it. But then for some reason, you're not allowed to tell anyone about it because it will be some,
international incident.
Yeah, it's really weird stuff like that. But there will be a reason for it. It's not like just bloody mindedness that they decided to go with a.
No, it never is. But it's just like,
but it's weird, isn't it? But yeah, I don't hold high hopes that we're going to see it launch anytime soon. Unfortunately, which is
I'm not staying up late on September 27th if that's what it is.
I mean, at the beginning of this year, it was looking like a kind of like super epic. Like launch vehicle year, right?
You know what's wild? At the beginning of the year, they were still talking about March, weren't they?
Yeah. I'm scarred from the time that we went on Interplanetary in like 2018, and I was just gushing about how excited I was for the green run that year. So
yeah,
that hasn't left my mind.
Yeah,
I have one of those too because I did a podcast in 20. It was the first year, so it was 2016, and
you were like, "It's launching."
The green run.
Yeah.
No, we were like, "The green run's next."
Oh, that
year.
was going to happen.
Great. Yeah. 2016.
I mean, sometimes and you're like, "What? How could it have taken this long?" Sometimes it just feels like that, and it's distressing.
Well, yeah, it's taken for ages. Well, I'll tell you what is distressing is that, like, if you're trying to explain to someone, like someone says. I say, oh my God, I've got to go off now and watch the SLS launch. And someone's going, what's that? And I'll explain it to them. And I say, yeah, it's taking a space capsule around the moon. It's like, well, didn't we do that like 55 years ago? It's like, yeah, you are actually right. We did do that, except this one's not quite as good because we can't land on the moon. So it's really hard. It's actually like a sort of, it's like a rocket fan's SciComm nightmare where you're trying to explain to someone how exciting something is while simultaneously knowing that it's not that great.
Yeah. It's like compared to Apollo, garbage. Compared to what we had 20 years ago, pretty good.
Arguable. Yeah.
Even that. Yeah. Our whole life now is just like seeing what we can get in exchange for not having Apollo anymore. And at this point, we're ready to give anything. Just like, just like give me any Just give me any rocket. I just want to relive the glory. Just whatever you got. I'll take 5% of what we had, please. Just anything.
I'm also just like, I really want to be done with this part of SLS. Like, I don't want to be talking about this anymore. I'm just tired of talking about when's it going to launch, is it going to launch, how many times is it going to launch. I'm really excited for like right when this mission lands, because then it's like a new era. Then and
well, this is the awesome thing that when we were scripting the Vega C launch, when we got to the end, it was like, do we say that was a nominal launch, right? And it was like, no, you don't, because until you've got all the data down, you won't know whether it was a nominal launch. So we called it a successful launch, or a picture perfect launch, I think was the wording that I came up with, which I think excited Dante because he'd never heard that phrase before, so he added it into his vast knowledge of English, but it was so I guess after SLS has actually done this mission, they're going to be pouring over like tons of data, and then who knows how long it'll be until they launch the next one. If you're considering how much happened to STS-1.
Yes. This is exactly the thing, right? This is like what we're all, I think Anthony and I are just like, we need to get this launch off because there is such a huge conversation that needs to follow on 24 hours later. Like as soon as that Orion splashes down and we just go, okay, that was great. Now
what?
Like, that's like, it's like such a giant question.
And the cycles, the timelines of this vehicle, right? If you go back to 4 years ago when we were on each other's podcast and listen to the conversations we were having about SLS and the industry that we were comparing it to, and then compare it to the industry that exists today, and know that when Artemis 2 flies, it will be 3 or 4 years down the line, because I'm not believing the 2-year thing. I'm thinking it's 3 years, right? Where are we at that point? Like the gravity of the world changes between each SLS, launch or even like major event, because the cycles are so long. And that's the part that I feel like is, and more so than all the political decisions and the weird decisions that went into SLS existing, the thing that dooms it is the cycles are so long that it just does not work with the speed the world moves today.
Yeah. No, particularly if you think since we were on each other's podcast talking about it, we've had COVID, Ukraine, Brexit. It's like there's so many, and Trump,
and a king. A king now exists.
And now a king, now the Queen. So it's like we
got to change all our money, Matt. Like that's so much work. We're not going to be able to focus on.
I know. Well, exactly. So that's the Canadians and the Brits. We can't think about anything for at least 2 years now. Oh my God! It's the thing I can't get my head round is that the landing on the moon thing, which still seems to be no one's that excited about, just has so many unanswered questions for me. I just can't. The thought that they could have done it in 2024 now looks absolutely ridiculous, right? I mean, that just clearly that's just mental talk. But even 28 seems pretty mental talk to me. If there's only one way of landing
the
on the
24
moon.
one was always mental though. It was like
it was always mental, but it looks
Pence went up there, and like the second they said it, 2024, every single space journalist was like, "This is not going to happen." Published, like immediately, like it was no question. There wasn't any deliberation. There wasn't like, well, maybe if no, nothing. It was like not going to happen. Like even the most ardent optimists were just like, "This is impossible."
Even Jamie called it. but it's
That's how long ago it was. Jamie was the co-host of
That's how long it's been. Yeah, and it's nuts. There's too many things. There's too many things. Have we? You must have answered this question a million times before. Who's going to put their feet on the moon first next? Is it going to be the Chinese or the Americans?
Or Jeff Bezos personally?
Or Jeff Bezos personally?
Yeah. I think the odds of Jeff Bezos personally are better than you would imagine.
Non-zero,
Yeah, I would think that's a better... That's like, if you're going to put a bet, that's the one that would pay off the best because it's the most likely and probably the highest odds of the most likely ones.
It's the highest odds of the possible.
Can you imagine?
It's the highest odds of the possible, Maybe Jamie. Could be Jamie.
Could be Jamie. It'd be good if it was William Shatner. That would be
he would be totally blown away by the experience.
Yeah. While Jeff Bezos isn't listening to him.
Spraying champagne on him, yes.
I can't relive that. Please, I can't relive that. I can't.
No, it's too horrible. It's too horrible. But that would be Jeff Bezos paying him back and saying, "I'm really sorry about what happened before.
Yeah, please go to the moon.
On the moon. Please go to the moon." Okay.
Matt, can you tell people about the Interplanetary Podcast where you, in fact, do put this ace back into space?
Yes, I can tell you about the Interplanetary Podcast. It used to be a weekly podcast, but due to my life being incredibly hectic at the moment, it is now monthly. I will try and get it back to weekly once my life stops being hectic. I have a new co-host, Lynn, who is a budding PhD student in exoplanets. So it's really super awesome having Lynn on. And I occasionally have co-hosts who are from the Patreons as well, but like I did last time, which was about the Martian house in Bristol. So that was really cool. But yeah, interplanetary.org.uk is the place to go, or just find me on Twitter, or just put in the Interplanetary Podcast. It's been around long enough
Google
now
him,
for it to come
folks.
up on a Google search. But yeah, I tell you what, there's a lot of back catalogue to get through. I didn't realise just how many episodes I've managed to sort of get out there. So there's good ones, like Matthias Maurer is always a good one to go back and listen to.
Oh yeah,
because he's a genuinely awesome astronaut, and like really
you've had
really
some great astronauts on there. There's like talking about back catalog. You've had an awesome repertoire of astronaut interviews. So yeah. Checking out.
Well, Kathy Sullivan I think is possibly the favorite, my favorite person I've ever met. But yeah, I mean, talk about an awesome astronaut. That's just
and you've got Helen Sharman
on a couple of times. Yeah. Helen.
Did you had one of the? Well, that's Matthias. I'm thinking of one of the German ones, right? But you've had a bunch. I mean, it's great.
Yeah,
and then people who've trained the astronauts. You've got a bunch of the cool facility tours.
Yeah. Some of it's good because obviously there was some really good access to some of the European dudes, and obviously all the people that work on the projects as well, like Space Rider and Vega and Ariane. We've had we had that really good episode about the Ariane James Webb launch and why it got into such a great orbit. And I thought that was so interesting how many sort of kind of little nuggets of information came out of that one. That was just mind-blowing. So that, yeah, I mean, the guests, it's all about the guests. I've got a really good guest. I don't know if you know her. Do you know Becky Smethurst? She's got a fantastic like YouTube channel that's like pretty big. It's like 500,000 subscribers.
Sounds very familiar. Just I feel like I've stumbled upon it.
Yeah, she does a lot of sort of black hole stuff, and whenever she's, I have to say, she's my sort of go-to person when people are talking about James Webb images and things like that. She's on it, so she's a proper black hole research scientist, and so that's the next interview that's coming out next. So that's awesome.
Nice,
cool.
Jake, what you got cooking?
Dude, I'm in like writer's block with talk about SLS.
Yeah, you are.
I'm like, I have an episode like it's mostly written, and I don't like it, and so I'm trying to. I've just been going back and forth, so it'll be out soon. But I have to get over myself and figure out. Anyway, you
do like I did on the SLS one. I went in no notes and I just talked for 40 minutes and saw and looked at what happened. And I was like, that's good. Let's ship it.
And it's funny because I listened to yours about it, and it's like we nail a lot of the same points. Like if I compare what I wrote down, and of course you beat me, so you're gonna get all the credit.
Only because I was waiting for you to put yours out. And I was like, screw it.
I know we were both waiting for it, but I just like. Anyway, we talked about this a week ago. I'm in the same place a week ago
great.
That we talked.
The thing is, you should have been like all the people that wrote the obituary for the Queen. You knew it was coming. You should have written it. You should have written everything that you wrote beforehand and just instantly pressed go. And
so I honestly thought of that. I thought of doing that, but there's just been so much ink spilled about SLF. Like there is so much talk, and there's just if I had pre-written it ahead of time, it would have had zero original thought. I'm like, the only way I can do something interesting is if I actually write about my experiences on the trip. So that's where I am right now. It's like it's not really about SLS. It's about what I experienced when I went to Florida
around SLS.
So,
is when you were tripping.
Yeah, when I was looking at manatees between the like 3, 4, 5 days it took between launch attempts.
Manatees are cool though. They're cool.
They are cool. I quite like to see a manatee. That's not fair. Good.
Jake, I got some good ones out. I put out this one about space insurance, which sounds boring.
Yes.
And I promise it's
I have
not.
not listened to it yet, but I'm excited for it.
It's over an hour
feedback is
about
really
space
good.
insurance. Yeah, I've got like 5 different notes of like, I thought this show was going to suck and I almost didn't listen to it. I listened to it and it was a lot of fun and very insightful. So exactly how I felt, because I don't know anything about space insurance, because no one will tell you anything about space insurance. And I finally found people to talk to. So, and then this morning I talked to Bob Pierce, who's the Associate Administrator for NASA's Aeronautics Mission Directorate, which is quite interesting. It's the side of NASA everyone forgets about in our circles. So we talked about planes. There's an Anthony fun fact in the episode that Jake knows that I have never talked about publicly, and I thought this was the right person to tell this Anthony fun fact.
Haven't you talked about it publicly?
I have not. I have not.
I feel like it came out in an Off-Nominal somewhere.
I have not talked about it anywhere publicly before, because I feel a little bit weird about it, and yet I spilled the beans.
Are you going to do it now?
To Bob
Are you going to do
Pierce.
it now? Or
I can do it now.
listen
If
to
people
the
are watching
podcast?
this late into the show, they deserve a little treat. Bob Pierce is in charge of the aeronautics department. I feel like I should go get a prop for this. Should I get a prop?
Do you have a prop?
I got a prop.
Are you that much of a super fan of this thing that
Hold
you
on.
have a prop? That's like pretty wild that you have something that you can show for this story. We're filling air. Me and Matt are just drinking.
Yes. Do you know what?
found
Let's say, this
found
gin
the
is
prop.
lovely.
So
The gin is good?
when
Okay.
this was the
Really?
24th
Really?
of April 2000, and it's a
And
longer
how
story
old
than
were
this.
you at that point?
9. I was 9 years old. This may or may not be the origin of Anthony Aerospace Nerd. It was probably before that, but this was a key moment in my life. I flew on Air France 001, which in fact was a Concorde flight.
Whoa!
So yeah. Anyway, I talked to Bob Pierce about flying on a supersonic plane, and it was very cool. It's a cool moment.
That
So
is to be fair, Concorde is probably peak Britain.
it's pretty peak. Yeah. Yeah, my dad had the brilliant insight that this plane was not long for the world, and I would be less mad at myself for paying a lot of money to fly on a thing than I would be for not flying on a thing when I'm old. And he did it, and I am. And it was pre 9/11, and I was the youngest one on the plane by about several decades. And they came back to our row, and they asked my dad and I if we would like to go into the cockpit, and we did at 60,000 feet at Mach 2 over the Atlantic. Which is high enough to see the curve when you're in the cockpit because you have a wide view. So, mind-blowing. Too long of content for the end, so this is in the topic of France. This is a very French goodbye, if we're still allowed to say that.
Au revoir. Did you before you go? Did you put your hand on the side of the plane and feel how hot it was? Did you get
When you got out? Yeah, it's a little warm.
Well, no,
it cooled down a little bit.
Apparently on the
From the inside, yeah. I was too busy looking out the tiny windows. Yeah.
He was 9, Matt. He wasn't going through a checklist. Jeez.
Come on.
Anyway, so there's a little send-off. Matt, thanks for hanging out with us for so long. You're the best.
I'm jealous. So jealous. No, you guys are the best.
You're the best.
You are the best. You are the best. That's it.
That's where I'm calling it, Jake.
I'll take it.
See you, everybody.
Cheers. That's great.
Oh, yes.